Hello there. Welcome to episode 56 of Bow and Blade, a podcast brought to you by medievalist.net, your home for all things medieval on the internet. Bow and Blade gives you a seat at the bar as scholars of medieval warfare go beyond the Wikipedia articles to talk about the debates and the questions that we're working on today. I'm Michael Livingston, distinguished professor at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina.
And I'm Kelly DeVries, professor of history at Loyola University, and not distinguished because I was distinguished at the Air Force Academy, just a regular professor. And by the way, announcing I'm retiring at the end of this year, Mike.
He's retiring. He's retiring, everybody. Not from the podcast.
No. Or life.
But yeah. Yeah, or life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly is well deserved.
Well
deserved.
Yeah. And then I'm over 65. That's how I deserve it.
Well done, sir.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
So yes, everybody, we have to we got to throw Kelly a party at Leeds or whatever because he's if
I make it to Leeds,
this next spring.
I'm getting old, I'll be there. We've got a planned, Bob Uzo Savage and I are going to lead the tour to Pickering Castle and Church.
Ooh.
So this will be a
very fun,
nice tour. If you have not seen Pickering, you should. The Royal Castle, Mott and Bailey, all that sort of stuff. Pickering Church with some really interesting heavily restored medieval wall mosaics. And not mosaics, frescoes. Sorry, frescoes.
Well, huge congratulations, man. Really,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, it'll be interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do without having students in the classroom, but as I'm currently marking essays, I do know exactly what I will do with not having them.
Yeah. The teaching bit's the fun part. The grading's not.
No,
not gonna miss that.
No.
Well, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, very hearty congratulations.
And congratulations go out to you too. Mike has finished his latest book. Just got the edits in, didn't you? What's the next step?
Well, the next step is see if they like my edits. Okay, I suppose. And now we start doing images and all that, which is, when you get a book that's coming out with 2 different publishers, well, 3 different publishers, whatever, it gets messy. So, but yeah, it's done. I don't know if they've said I can release the title yet, but it's a new history of the 100 Years' War. So it's kind of a big one.
It's a small topic.
Just a small topic.
Just a century and plus.
Yeah, just a smidge. And we've actually been gone a little bit. Kelly and I both kind of extremely busy. So yeah, sorry about our kind of unplanned hiatus there.
Absolutely. Conflicting teaching for one. You do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm doing Tuesday, Thursday this term. It's a little hard then and you do mostly morning, I do mostly evening or late afternoon.
Yeah, we're kind of completely just taking out every day, really, between the 2 of us. So yeah, that's a little bit rough. And there's just been lots of weird things going on. I had a History Hit put out a new documentary I did on the Battle of Agincourt.
It's good, by the way.
A bunch of voiceover stuff.
Did they put out 3?
We've been busy.
Or is it just in 3 parts?
The Agincourt documentary is a single episode, like hour long thing. I shot 3 documentaries.
That would
simultaneously. This is just the first of them to come out. So the other 2 are forthcoming, which is the Battle of Bouvines and Chateau Gaillard.
Wow.
So looking forward to those, but they're not. I haven't had to do voiceover for those yet, so they're a bit
fun
off.
Stuff. Well, Chateau Gaillard, you've got to love. I mean, we're almost talking about the Chateau Gaillard, at least the period today.
Yeah, we are. And yeah, Chateau Gaillard is, oh my God, a really incredible place. I don't know how we could do a podcast on a place, but we could think about trying.
Could go to some of these places is what we probably ought to do. I don't know whether we could describe. Can you describe a castle well enough to get it in a podcast?
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't know. It should be able to do it. Here
But
we are.
I mean, one of the sieges of Chateau Gard, there's some good stuff for sure.
I like the fact that
But that's not what we're doing
I
today.
like the fact that Philip Augustus waits around for Richard to build it, then takes it from him. Spends all that English money to get his own castle.
Thanks for the hard work, buddy. I'll take
Yeah,
it.
we'll take it from here.
Um, yeah, fantastic. Well, before we get any further, what are you drinking at the bar today, man?
Well, we're doing an English battle, solely English battle, English versus English, and so I think I have to stick with a good gin. Maybe I'll have tonic too because it's London, so maybe I'll have a good tonic with it. Oh, I'm not entirely certain the tonic's known at this period of time that we're talking about. Now that I recall, I think it comes after quinine, which is much later. So maybe I'll have a gin and whatever is contemporary.
You don't got to be period accurate, man. Well, that's
Okay,
that's
all
that's
right,
not necessary.
gin.
Have your gin and tonic.
All right,
Live your
gin and
life.
tonic. So I'll do.
Live your life
Big
with a twist
lime,
of
which
lemon. Go
also would have
for it.
been known in England, of course.
Uh, that's a good choice. It's a good choice.
Thank you.
One of the things I think I've talked about this before. One of the things I love about uh, well, Britain in general these days, is the gin industry is just going great. There's
It
just
is.
every place has got a local gin. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think they're trying to keep up with the whiskeys all around them. So they've got to have the gin coming up. Besides,
I am here for this competition.
yes,
Oh, that's a good choice.
and you're drinking.
I'm just gonna have a good local pub beer here.
Ah, all right,
Just
all right.
cask ale. Let's do this.
Yeah. So you're
Because we
playing the
are,
peasants, then, are you?
yeah.
I got the nobles.
I'm gonna play the part of a baron today.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we are today talking about the Battle of Lewes in 1264,
Yeah.
and that we are doing this. Just look, if anybody you're like, it's not what I want him to do, I'm really upset. Greg in Australia, it's his fault.
Yeah. Absolutely. Throw him under the bus.
Yeah, yeah. This was not us. This was Greg. He sent us a terrific question about this battle, or I mean, kind of a series of questions.
Yeah.
And we thought about doing it for Q&A,
Yeah.
but
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, we just thought we'd about doing it for Q&A, and then we're like, you know what? Let's forget
Yeah.
it. Let's just do a whole episode on it. So here we are.
Absolutely. We do that periodically. We've had such good questions. We think, yeah, let's do this in a battle
Yeah,
sequence.
yeah.
But Greg knows
So
something.
yeah,
He knows something about
the
this battle.
Battle of Lewes. This is well, it's a big one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big one. Where do we want to set the stage for this?
Well, I mean, years ago, and geez, I'm 40th year teaching, 34th at Loyola. I had a student who asked me why England had so many of these civil wars. The Matilda just finished Stephen and Matilda, and now we're talking about Richard revolting against his father, Henry II, now Henry III versus his barons. Oh, John and his barons, of course. Now we're Henry and his barons. And the point the student was making is, comparatively, France has very few of these. And so why is it that England, every 50 years or so, feels like the need to go out and kill Englishmen?
Did you have a good answer for the student?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I kind of sidestepped it. I talked about
nice.
divine right. I mean, the English don't have divine right in their coronation. The French do, so it's a sin of heresy as well as of treason if you go against the king of France or some of the or Castile or some of those places. But yeah, but that is I'm not sure that's the answer.
I don't know what the answer would be either. I think there is something to the fact that from Clovis onward, you have this consecrated king. That is essential to the notion of kingship in France, and it does, it does change over time, but that principle is kind of there at the core.
Yeah.
I agree.
Hugh,
I
Hugh
agree.
Capet has it written into the coronation oath that he takes in what is it, 987. So, and the England never does. So
Yeah,
now we don't know what William put in his coronation. We do know he was crowned and had a coronation. We know that Harold had a coronation before him, but we don't have any of those features, I think, extant. And we know what,
yeah,
yeah, but they don't. They don't. And this may have been a position. This may have been something that Michael Prestwich a long time ago had mentioned to me, that really the English don't have the divine right to rule in their coronation, and this allowed the things such as Magna Carta, which is probably where we could begin this one, if you will. I mean,
yeah,
it's John being forced by the barons of England to sign the Magna Carta, which nobody likes except for the barons. The Pope says no, Innocent the Third says no. Um, the king doesn't like it. I mean, in 1216, 1217, well, 1216, and then it's carried on a little bit in 1217 in his name. He goes back after those barons
yeah. Well, I mean, what has Magna Carta done? It
for
has,
us lately.
uh, aside, yeah, aside from
Roads and
sort of the nitty gritty of
yeah,
it, like in principle, what is the big thing it has done? It has put limitations on kingship, on the ruler, and has put these other men, they're all, of course, men, into a position that the king felt was above their station.
yes.
Of course, they were quite in favor of it. But as Kelly said, immediately upon Magna Carta, you have the king saying, "I was forced to do this. I'm going to immediately try and claw back what I've given away here." But obviously, they don't want to give back anything either. So it establishes not just a precedent of limiting the king's power, but also now a fighting ground on which to do that. And yeah, Magna Carta becomes something that is fought over again and again over the next generations. So yeah, I mean, it's a perfectly good place to kind of start thinking about this. And on top of it, you have all the weight of of the Angevins kind of coming kind of all to bear here on this situation. The king is Henry the Third,
Yeah.
and Henry lives in the shadow of an awful lot, like
Yes.
an awful lot.
Like a really bad royal father and a really bad royal uncle and a really bad royal grandfather. He died.
But I also a history of once had been greatness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is the things have fallen on very, very hard times, but like it was right there, and we had this amazing, the Angevin Empire. It's often called, though I think we've pointed out on the podcast before, it
It was
wasn't an empire,
no,
but
no.
um, but the idea of that, right? This massive thing, and what do we have now, right? So there's a lot of kind of weight of memory and of kind of past importance that Henry is trying to grapple with at the same time that he's wanting to raise himself up, and then the barons are like, no, man, we don't
Yeah.
you don't get to be in charge like people once did. You don't get to do that anymore. We have the Magna Carta now. We have this tradition now.
It's an interesting tradition. I mean, I remember thinking about this. Were you with me when we saw the Magna Carta display at the British Library and for the
Yes.
centenary? Yeah, to see all of them there all laid out in front. You realize there's
Yeah.
only four copies. I was trying to think how many copies are there of the American Constitution? There's probably not that many either. But the barons clearly after 1215 thought they had signed something that was going to limit John's power. And John had been abusing his power. There's no question. I think that's the one given in British royal history during the Middle Ages. John abuses power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It was limiting his power was
it was
deserved.
deserved. Yes. He was a
There will never
dreadful
be a
thief.
John II.
Never. And yeah, it also made Richard look good. By having a worse king following him, made him look awfully good. And then we get poor Henry
There
the
you go
Third.
again, trying to get
I
hate
know, I
mail
know.
for you, Richard. You're always trying.
Yes, there is a Richard cheering squad. Richard the Third Society. There's a Richard the First Society. We're probably missing a Richard the Second Society somewhere. But yeah, Henry the Third lives in that shadow. There's no question. John reacts after the Magna Carta as if he's been slapped on the wrist. And once he's got some money, once he's got some men, he goes back to war against those who signed the Magna Carta. And for the benefit of all, he dies before he can do anything. Thank heavens, thank you God for making John die. And then but that leaves Henry the Third, who, yeah, up until our queens in the 19th and 20th century is the longest serving on the throne. Poor Henry is there as a kid, and then he lives through it. Real ignominious reign, though. It's like one of those questions: what did Henry do for you? What did Henry the Third do for England?
Well, on the other hand, given sort of the hand he's dealt, not managing to do a whole lot is both kind of understandable and probably good. I mean, not
Yeah, maybe
trying to do things hadn't worked out well for a lot
not
of
for
folks.
not for dad or uncle. Not
Yeah. So certainly this is, and especially beginning in the 1250s, he's beginning to have some real
yeah,
difficulties, financially. And inevitably, when the crown starts having financial difficulties, the ways out of that situation tend to involve policies that are not very popular, with the tax base, which basically means the barons in this case. And that is one of the things that happens here, because he does try. He makes this plan. He's going to go get the kingdom of Sicily, which doesn't,
yeah. Geez,
you
he,
work. But
it worked for a few brothers and Norman brothers, but it's not going to work for the King of England. Kingdom of Sicily. If you look on a map, John or Henry, you can see the King of Sicily like a continent away. It's a
yeah,
long distance,
yeah,
yes, and under pretty strict control at that point. I think that the it's not just that the policies on the taxes were unpopular at this time. It's now that because of the Magna Carta, it's illegal for Henry to go to
yeah,
some of his revenue sources. So there's, what he is now constrained to something that really even his father did not have to, his father signs it, does not have to live under. And, I mean, I know my students start having problems when I'm talking about warfare and finances, but it costs money to fight wars, and it costs money to acquire things like kingdoms of Sicily that are halfway around the known world at that point. Um, he is constrained in ways that no English king had been constrained before, and yet he, he doesn't quite understand that. I get the opinion. He's been, braised thinking that John had solved all that with the problems in 1216 and then 1217, and so now the barons are much more in his favor, and that's when he runs into a number of them who are not.
yeah. Very much not. Yeah, very much not. So in the late 1250s, And then moving into the 1260s, yeah, you have the barons like flexing their muscle in a very direct way, and trying to sort of take over uh wow, again in a fairly direct way. I
Yeah,
mean, the
yeah.
provisions of Oxford
Provisions
are
of
are really putting some reforms in place that are um even more restrictive
yeah, yeah,
than than what kind of Henry was facing, right? So his attempt to wrest back control from the restrictions he was under got him more restrictions.
yeah, yeah. Well, and there were restrictions outside of the bounds, even outside of his concept of who was going to, who he needed to get on his side and who he needed not to get on his side, or who was not going to come to his side. And that is, we get the introduction of London, and we get the introduction of the London militias and the London population now making its first political statement. And that must have caught him a little bit surprised. I think in the battle, we kind of get that the Londoners' presence stands out to both sides. And so here we've got, we don't have a House of Parliament in 1264. And the limitations of Oxford kind of starts focusing, bringing in a body that are not nobles, but has a lot of money.
But I've got a lot of money, and money speaks. Money's power. Who's leading the charge, as it were, against Henry? Who's the Baron that we know and love?
Yeah, that we know and love. Simon de Montfort. If you are named Simon de Montfort in the Middle Ages, I think you have a middle name that is asshole. Simon de Asshole Montfort. The two Simon, the Simon here and the Simon who is his father, both participate in these odd military conflicts that gets them dead. We won't let it out of the bag that okay, this Simon de Montfort, sometimes called Simon Fifth, sometimes called Simon Sixth. He dies at the ensuing battle at Evesham, but dear old dad has a come to Jesus moment with a rock shot out of a catapult at the siege of Toulouse. By tradition, shot at him by a woman crew. I love it.
Could not be better. It could not be better. And we haven't done Evesham. We'll have to do Evesham. It's really cool. And there's an amazing book by Sophie Therese Ambler called The Song of Simon de Montfort that really looks at Evesham and about this guy and what happens to him there, because it's very interesting. But he's the Earl of Leicester, and so he's got some rank. You're up there.
He's got some rank.
Good stuff.
It's curious that when his father was French, his father is all involved in that, but still Earl of Leicester and living abroad. And then when Simon comes back with his mother, they come to England. Uh, he's not recognized as Earl of Leicester by Henry III. So Henry III immediately makes him an enemy by not recognizing him in his father's title. And I've never ever read anything that convinces me why Henry chose this little mountain to make his climb to.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
one of those questions we don't know. It's very important, but we don't know it. No.
Yeah, no idea. But he becomes really the focal point of resistance in what becomes known as the Second Barons' War, because, well, as Kelly started with this whole thing, we have these things frequently enough that they're numbered.
Yes.
So this is number two, the Second Barons' War, and it has a number of conflicts, but I think Battle of Lewes is like this is the big one.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
to me, obviously Evesham, Montfort bites it, and that's it. But Lewes is like, this is a really big deal,
Yeah.
this fight, and it's a big battle.
And although, we probably won't discuss this more until Evesham, there is a charismatic leadership role that Simon plays in this. I mean, he gathers some earls to him, barons, and yet he would have been younger and his family less important than some of the people he brings to him, like Gilbert de Clare and Henry de Spencer. Not This is the grandfather of Henry de Spencer, of Edward's second time, but these are important earls, and then but it's not the whole earls. So he doesn't have the coalition that they did at Runnymede. There's still some with Henry III, and yet Simon de Montfort's able to get these earls together and to bring their armies to a total of 5,000.
Which is a lot.
Yeah,
It's not as much as the king has.
No, but still. And by the way, we should say right off the bat, Simon de Montfort wins this. He doesn't die in television, so he's got smaller numbers against the king. Yes, that should be established right off the bat. The numbers totaled by almost everybody looks to be about 5,000 versus 10,000.
Which is again, this is a very, very large battle. It whether or not one can definitively say, like, this is the biggest battle since Hastings or whatever, those kind of things that you see in the pamphlets, hard to say, but it is very big. This is a very big fight, and Montfort, as Kelly's saying, has got roughly half of what the Royalist forces have, and the Royalist forces have, not only the king, Henry III, the Prince Edward, who's going to become kind of an important dude in history, one might say, future King Edward, but also quite an array of these high-ranking noblemen as well. Richard of Cornwall's there, and Roger Mortimer and such.
And
so
Humphrey de Le Bon.
You have, yeah, right, Humphrey de Bon. So you've got like a lot on kind of both sides, but clearly, like on paper, this is a fight. You think the Royalists again? They got this.
Yeah,
They got this.
yeah, but this is a time in English history, maybe one of the few times where, if you're looking at the battlefield, you like we do from afar, and we're judging these sort of things. There are not a lot of experienced warriors in either group. There's been peace, and you kind of wonder if and back in the heyday of the Angevin, at the beginning of the Angevins with Henry II and Richard and John, there were always an experienced force. They'd been on crusade and they'd done all this. We're still away from Edward, Prince Edward, as Edward first going on crusade later on, and
Yeah.
so I'm always wondering. We count the numbers. How many experienced troops are on either side?
Where we had what the Battle of North when is the Battle of Northampton? That's on the 5th of April. So yeah, we've just had that, the Battle of Northampton, which was a Royalist win. Henry III had won that. Simon de Montfort had lost that. So Simon had faced off before, against and actually his son is, I believe, if I remember correctly, is captured there. So they had faced off already. I would say for sure one of the things that happens here is that Simon de Montfort, I lost his name for a second there in my brain. I don't know why that happened. I was like, if Kelly could see me like just kind of staring blankly there, like, what happened to the name?
That's because you have
Simon de Montfort.
Simon de Montfort in your mind. That's what it was.
Yeah. Simon de Montfort has in the sense that one learns from mistakes, and takes bold actions sometimes because of those mistakes. The Battle of Lewes really does look like a fight that he wins.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
would
he
say
does
there's no
win, but I
question.
mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, that he's the one that does this and manages this in a pretty concrete way. I don't know that anybody kind of thinks anyone else came up with what happens here
I do think
because
that
it's
now when we get into the action, I'll have some questions about that because I'm wondering if the English, if it, yes, it's a win for the rebels, um, but the royal forces, there are mistakes made there. I think
oh,
mistakes
very
made
much so.
there, and so it's one of these things where you say, is the losing side to blame for the loss rather than the winning side for the victory, giving credit for victory, and that's often a
Yeah,
question.
I think as we'll see, it's a little bit of
Yeah,
both. But to guess kind of get to the battle, uh, Henry has taken position in the castle at Lewes. So he's got castles, good castle. The remains of there are still there. Um, he's got the castle. It's on a crossroads, good location, southern England. Very nice. And uh, he's got maybe 10,000 men. Um, as you all know, I kind of tend to want to push those numbers down a little bit, but it's a lot. He's got
yeah,
a
he's got a
lot.
lot.
Um, he's got a lot. And Simon de Montfort is approaching this position, and it looks like Henry thinks we're going to negotiate.
That's an interesting question because I, in reading this, wonder if if it's Henry who wants to negotiate, or if it's Simon that wants to negotiate.
Like Henry wants to
You think
negotiate.
Henry does because Henry's the one
Yeah.
who has not recognized the limitations of Oxford, and so what does he have to give Simon? Is he going to try to buy him off with land or money? Because he's not going to accept the limitations of Oxford. So I wonder, we always get this idea that they're going to negotiate. They've got 10,000 men on the royal side. Not a lot of them negotiating there. Oh, they're all notaries. 9,999 are notaries, and Henry is the negotiator. Uh, you bring a lot of men, not because you're going to negotiate, unless you want to intimidate, which I would accept.
Well, I mean, they Simon de Montfort's son was captured at Northampton. So I've kind of always wondered if that was part. I actually don't know when he was released. I'm thinking he was still captive.
I'm not sure about that. I
Um,
think he is because is he the one? I'm just checking as this can't remember everything, folks. I'm just checking to see what if he's the one that's with the army here at Lewes. There's two Montfort sons
yes,
with Simon, so I'm not entirely certain who it is who's captured. I'm looking it up.
Simon de Montfort the younger
Okay, yeah,
was captured at Northampton, and so I kind of had in my head that he was still in
I think you're
possession.
right. And see, because he's not at Lewis.
He'll be at Evesham, but
Yeah,
he's
he's
not
not at
he's not
Lewis.
well, no, I guess he's late getting to Evesham, which is part of the problem. Well, anyway, the Henry I thinks it looks like thinks we're gonna have a negotiation, but Simon of Montfort's like, there's no negotiation here. This is where we're up to something else. And what he does is really um really quite smart.
Yes,
Really.
yes. And Henry should have known that there was not going to be much of a negotiation when he realizes that although Simon has half the troops he does, he's sitting on a hill. He's got the high ground.
Well, this is the thing. He takes this high ground, which is beautiful work. In an overnight march, Simon of Montfort moves his army around the royalist position to take up position. If you look at a map, Lewis is kind of in a valley, as most towns are, and to the north and west of town, there's quite a large hill, and with these kind of fingers of ridges coming down. That's where Montfort settles. He takes position up there, throws up his flag, lines his boys up, and is like, I've got the high ground. And it's significant high
It
ground.
is
It's
significant.
very significant.
Yeah, and especially since we're still at a time when the high ground is going to matter. I mean, we don't have a large number of archers to pull people down off the high ground. We don't have a lot. We don't have gunpowder weapons, of course. We're in that age when the English are developing their armies that are going to be used in the Hundred Years' War. But we're not there yet. And I think that, so I think, yes, having the high ground. And it seems to me that Henry's a little bit soft. He spent the night at Castle. His troops have spent the night at the Priory. And so they're coming out of, in the meantime, here's Simon de Montfort has marched his troops through the night. They're tired. They're probably hungry. And these guys are rolled out of their tents and out of their quarters in the castle and Priory, and they're a bit softer than Henry's, a bit less determined, I think, than Henry's or than Simon's troops are.
Well, and it's yeah, I mean, there's a lot of shock that these guys are up there, right? And what are you going to do? Apparently, it's one of these things where I'm like, is that really what happened? But supposedly that royalist forces were out foraging when they ran into the baronial forces up on Offham Hill. We're like, oh my God, and got repulsed, and that's what kind of instigated that we're going to have a battle here.
Yeah, I'd like to look at
I
the
don't,
source a little bit closely on that. There's a lot of
yeah,
sins that are foraging that are assigned to foraging troops that begin these
yeah,
battles. And you think
yeah,
if they're at the Priory and the castle, why are they foraging for food?
yeah. I got so
Yeah,
many
I'm
questions
I'm
about that
with
story.
you
But
on that.
that's a story.
I'm with you on
That's a,
that. Yeah.
one way or another, we're going to have this pitched battle, and the battle happens. Probably, we have no confirmed remains of the Battle of Lewes, but probably on the lower reaches of that hill, of Offham Hill, as it's coming down to Lewes. Exactly where, we don't know, because it's all built up now. There's suburbs have crawled up
Yeah. And a
the
prison.
slopes into prison. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't want to go. I love searching for battles, but I don't want to go to prison to do it.
No, and we learned from Hastings, of course, that nobody stands on the top of the high ground because there's only a little bit of the top. They're down a bit
Yeah,
on the ridge, and then they moved down a bit. I think maybe this is a problem initially. Had it gone the other way, I think my criticism would be that they came off. They came too far down the ridge, too far down the hill. But it was good enough at this in this occasion. So they're facing troops. So foraging is it is it the guy's having his coffee out on the guard duty, and he looks up and goes, "Oh, geez, there's a whole bunch of guys dressed up there in white crosses."
yeah, yeah. Simon Montfort had all his guys wearing white crosses so they could tell who they were. Again, quite good thinking, right? We all speak the same language. We all kind of look the same. We're gonna need some determiner if we get into a fight here of who's who. Everybody wear white crosses.
Everybody's been supplied
Um,
by arms and armor from the same people.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So you end up getting this high ground position, and a bit importantly, at least we should at least talk about what's happening on the left side of Montfort's line, and what's happening on the right side of the Royalist line, because in many respects that's where the action is going to be that determines what happens here.
Yes, yes.
So who is it that's holding the left on Montfort's
Well,
side?
Montfort has divided his armies into four. And we don't know what the size are, but he's put his three groups of knights and their retainers on the right towards the middle, and then on the left is the London is, and they're in the source they call the Londoners, but I would dare say that these are militia more than anything. Um, that's Yeah, London hadn't been in too many engagements. I think these are militias. So they're a little bit different dressed, a little bit less well armored, a little bit less well armed, whatever would have been in the garrisons of the city of London, not in the Tower, because that would have been under control of the king. So it looks like that is a determined tactic of Simon to put his weakest troops on the left.
And probably for good reason. At least as I now I will I'm going to freely admit I have not walked this ground. Um, so all I've got are topo maps and satellite. But and of course it's hard to tell because it's so built over at this point. But the way that the land is sloping, um, the left is better protected on the flank than the right. That is to say that the slopes are steeper to the north of the hill. So his Montfort probably feels like if my weakest guys, I want them on that left side because they're not likely to get flanked over there. Like nothing's going to come up the steep slope at them. So they're probably it's kind of the safer place to have those guys. Whereas in my stronger guys on the right, which is easier for the enemy to hit. So I'll want better command control on that side.
Now I'm going to disagree with you a tiny bit on this. I think he's using the Londoners out there on his left as bait. I think he wants
As
as
bait.
bait. I think he wants to draw. I think he wants to draw the cavalry on him, which he does. I mean, that's the effect. So I'm maybe talking, post facto and saying, okay, he's got them out there. They get attacked by the cavalry, which means his main bodies are going to be facing Henry's infantry, and because yeah, I don't know why you would put a weaker group of troops on the left as he does, unless you're trying to draw something to them. And rather than flanking them, rather than going around, Edward, who has the mobility with his cavalry, goes into them. He charges into them.
Well, I mean, what you're supposing there, I mean, is in effect what happened. So, I mean, if as you said, it's a little bit ex post facto, but if that's the plan,
Yes.
dang,
Yeah, I
like
know it's pretty ruthless, and
like
but the barons, what do they care about Londoners at this point in time?
At Capital One, we say yes to smart choices that add up. With the Capital One Smart Rewards MasterCard, you can earn points for paying down your balance. Then you can redeem your points for gift cards and more. See if you're pre-approved at CapitalOne.ca/yes.
money,
True,
money,
true. I don't know. I mean, this is
lots
just
of money.
when I read this the first time. This has been years ago that I looked at Lewes, and I probably saw through Ullman's eyes the first of so many of us. So many of our battles are seen first through the Sir Charles, um, and but I don't recall that he says this. He's a man of the people, a little more than I am. I'd kind of say, yeah, I think the barons. Why would they put Londoners there and not say as a rear guard, or not say as something in the middle where they could have protected them with stronger troops? They're out there on their lonesome.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can put him as a rear guard for sure because you're outnumbered. You need as
As
much
much as you can. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. There.
men up front as possible. You need to have wide lines. And I just think you put the weakest guys where you don't think they're going to get pummeled. They're not. You don't got to worry about them getting turned, which in fact they're not
They're
turned.
not turned, but that's because Edward doesn't try to flank them.
They're overrun.
Yes, he attacks them, and so that's what I think your point is very valid, and but I'm not, but and not nearly as ruthless as mine, and sticking the weaker ones out there to try to lure Edward's forces on. But as we've seen so many times in battles, the Decapolis would be a perfect one to compare. You know, if you get cavalry in a overrunning some group, they get tired. They get stopped. And after Edward runs through the Londoners, we'll say, chases many of them off, probably kills a lot. He doesn't seem to make much more of a doesn't play much more in the battle. It's over so very quickly after that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what does happen here is you have this group of Londoners, infantry on the baronial left, and on the royalist right is Prince Edward, the future Edward I. And he's in charge of the royalist cavalry. And as Kelly said here, let's go charge those dudes. And so at the start of the battle, they charge up at the left side of the baronial position, of Montfort's position, and run them off the field.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're heavy cavalry
Yeah.
facing really light infantry. We've got I mean, to use more modern terms, but that is the comparison. Edward's knights are strong, they're young, they're trained, they're on horseback. They have more in a horse than anybody in London probably has in their entire house. But yeah, so the Londoners don't put up a good fight.
Yeah. And again, we don't know the division of numbers really precisely, but I mean, we'll just say, you know, a fourth or whatever, roughly, of one of four parts of the army that Montfort has. Bolts. It runs. They sprint north, following the roads out of there, and hightailing it just to try and get away. And Edward apparently chases after them.
Yes.
He runs them off the field and continues running them down for a couple miles.
Oh, well, he's going to do that. I mean, rebels are food for, I mean, they're fodder at that point. That's all they are. There's no reason to let them go, no reason to not chase them down, except that then takes Edward out of the battle.
Right.
And
right. I was going to say, no, there's a very good reason not to do this.
Plan of, if I'm playing the devious Sir Simon de Montfort, and I say, okay, I can expend them and draw Edward away from the battle. If that's the plan, that's what happens.
It does work.
It does work.
I don't know how you sell the Londoners on that.
Oh, well, I don't think the Londoners actually probably understood what they were being used as. I think
they just didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know. Maybe they were, you know, it could very well have been what, as you say, and then Londoners thought they'd be more or better protected. But there's nobody on their side. I mean, if I've got weak troops, I put them in the middle. I don't put them on the edge. And especially since after Northampton, they have to know that the heavy cavalry that Prince Edward's going to be commanding are pretty fearsome.
Yeah, see, I think they probably thought the heavy cavalry was going to hit him on the left, because that's where the slopes were a little bit easier, and they probably didn't want to have the weak dudes in the middle, because that's where they're fighting the king.
Yeah,
we want to get the king.
Yeah,
he's in the middle.
Yeah,
we need our crack dudes going the spear point right up the center. But I mean, you know, but maybe you're like, you guys hold over there. No, it'll be great.
Yeah,
man, I can't wait until these guys get run off.
Just a little longer. I know there's a big
Keep
horse
running,
coming
boys.
down, completely armored man on top of him, but that's okay. He'll do well.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So they get run off, like I said, from miles.
Yeah.
And the effect of that is to remove at a stroke. And if Kelly's right, and this was intentional, brilliant. But if not, for Montfort to be like, oh my God, that's trouble. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah. There's no royal cavalry anymore. And we have the high ground, which means if we charge down, we have momentum.
Now, the one thing that works kind of a little bit against that is there is some in the original sources, there appears to be some difference of opinion as to whether Henry moves his infantry up the slope towards Montfort, or whether Montfort moves down, or whether they both do it simultaneously. In other words, Henry starts the boom and Montfort responds, or vice versa. It wouldn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Oh, I think that is for sure what happens, right? That Henry's moving up the slopes. As you know, the cavalry goes, and here come the infantry. Cavalry runs off, and Montfort now recognizes, like, yeah, I have to go now. You know, if I don't go now, it's not happening.
Well, still fighting from the high ground, coming down on Henry the whole time. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't want to hit the valley. He doesn't want to come down on the same level, but moving together with him, I think that makes sense. I think that's also why there's some difficulty within the sources as to who is moving first. After
Yeah.
Edward and starts. I mean, it's clear that Edward starts the battle with his cavalry charge.
Right, right. And at that point, you know, again, Henry's moving forward as well. And now Montfort has a choice to make, and makes absolutely the right choice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is we don't just want to hold here. We need to push, because if we don't, we're going to basically be overwhelmed as a line ourselves. You know, we're now that much, whatever the numbers were, that much weaker. And he doesn't know that Edward is gonna, like, keep rolling these guys up, like, miles up the road. Yeah. As far as he knows, I mean, what Edward, of course, ought to have done is wheel, right? He should have run them off, wheeled around and come right into the flank. He doesn't do that. He just
and that may be something that the ground won't allow. We just don't have enough knowledge of the ground. We're looking at the typographical maps and everything else, but it would be very interesting to know exactly what the ground looked like. I mean, it may have been impossible for Henry to flank him, which is why Simon picked that position to fight the battle. I don't know. It may also, though, have simply been that Henry knew he had superior numbers, and so at this point, saying, "Okay, let's just go at him. We've got a bigger army. Let's do it." And so he goes up the hill. What I'd love to know, and I know you always ask that at the end. I'll have something else for the end, but what I'd love to know is how many cavalry there was with Edward. I can't imagine that there was more than we're in the London group, and certainly not twice as more, which is what would have equaled the numbers, or made the numbers more consistent with Simon versus Henry. And that may have given Henry even a more of a numerical advantage. If we've got, say, 1,000 Londoners, or even 750 Londoners, but Edward only has 200-300 cavalry. So I think there's a lot. I think Henry is barring anything, he's counted on his numbers and his recent victory.
And not a bad idea to do that.
No.
I mean, you know, numbers count for a lot. They're not everything, but they do count for a lot. But they're having a fight uphill.
Yeah.
They're having a fight uphill. Yeah. And that is, you know, exhausting. And as you're pushing and Montfort is holding and then pushing back, now you got the danger of your men faltering, which is what happens here.
Yes.
That the royalist lines begin to falter and then begin to pull back downhill, which it's easy to fall back. I shouldn't say easy, because you can actually trip real easy. I don't mean like physically easy, but mentally easy to, like, instead of, I'm trying to slog forward and it's hard to go uphill. Taking a step back, man, that's easy enough to do. And that effect reverberates across the line. Yes. To the point that the royalist lines start to shake. And of course, this is when you start getting a big push from Montfort. And at that point, royalists are in retreat downhill, with advancing troops, having the high ground, coming down on them, momentum, and it's all the way back.
Yeah. Yeah, and
All the way back.
this is something we've seen before, in battles where the high ground becomes a determining factor in what's going to result. I mean, we saw it in Catalonian plains, the Romans and Lombard, or the Romans and the Goths on the ridge, and the Huns having to come up. See it also in several other places. It'll happen in Mons Pavel as well, in 1304. So the having the high ground is not a is a superior advantage. And I think part of it is, you talked about command and control. Part of it is there's not a lot of places to spread out on, because you're confined to the ridge. You're confined to that high ground. So your troops have got to be more disciplined. They've got to be more close, easier to communicate, easier to control. Henry, on the other hand, is coming up. Those troops are going to be varied. They're not going to be in a straight line. I don't think they will have the discipline, even if because one person slips, that whole group's going to fall back a bit. So I think there's a lot of things, and I don't know what Henry could have done differently, especially if he thinks that Edward's had a pretty decisive victory against the Londoners, which he did.
Yeah, I mean, this, you mentioned at the start, like, is this a battle that's won or a battle that's lost? And I mean, it's both. I mean, it's won in the sense that Montfort takes a terrific position by this night march. Yeah. It's lost to me by Edward getting hot-headed, shocking from Edward, young Edward. And I'm gonna just slaughter these guys. I don't care how many miles we got to ride. We're taking them all out. Like, dude, that's not what your job is right now. Like, that's not what you're doing. But it doesn't shock me. Like, it's Edward. I can totally see that him doing that.
At a recent conference in Madrid, where I was talking about flight in battle, and how often does it draw? This one was talking about the battle outside of Antioch in 1098, and how much does it draw the other troops away? And it only draws them away if they are led. I mean, if they are willing to go there, and if you've won that part, you could stop and turn around and come back. That appears to be what Henry V does, or would be Henry V does at Shrewsbury. That he doesn't chase off. He turns and hits the main force after his cavalry charge.
Well, you have instances of this where, yeah, people make the right choice. But it is hard.
It's got,
right? You're
battle adrenaline.
I'm going to go get these guys, and if they run, I'm going to chase them down. But like, as a commander, like, you have to understand, what am I actually doing? Like what is the actual mission at hand? And it's not to chase these guys miles down the road. My mission is to destroy this rebellion army, not these guys, the whole army. And I got the cavalry. Get back in the fight.
How old is Edward at this point?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. How old is the young
So
fella?
he's 1272. That's when he reigned. He's born in
1239.
1239
was when he was born.
So now we're talking to two humanities professors about math.
Well, so he's what, 25?
Okay. So he's a lot more experienced than, say, the Black Prince was during his early battles. He should have known. You're right. I mean, he should have known. He should have commanded his men better.
And I mean, and obviously, he's commanded them well, in the sense that they've done that initial charge. They've broken that part of the army, pushed them off the field. Like, well done. Like, all that is to your credit. That is what you're doing. But now what do you do? And that's where he's completely lost it. I mean, by this point, right? He's already been on the campaigns in Wales. A lot of that was cavalry, right? That was against Llywelyn ap Griffith. So yeah, he's got quite a bit of experience, and yeah, he should darn well know better. But he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't.
He doesn't stop, and it's interesting because he takes that entire element out of the battle, and you can see several others, in fact, at the same period with the same arms and armor. Campaldino, for example, which is only within 25 years, and the Italians fighting the Guelphs and the Ghibellines fighting. The Ghibellines do the exact same thing, is that they rush so much that they take a good unit out of battle. And once you do that, I mean, once you don't have all the forces, even though Henry still has a superior number without Edward there, Edward's removed himself. There's nobody to come to reinforce.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what.
Yeah. By the time Edward finally comes back, it's basically over.
It is over. Yeah.
The king is now pinned up. I believe the town is on fire.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, there's nothing, man. You guys are done.
Yeah. He surrenders and negotiates, says, okay, what was it we were supposed to, that I was supposed to do now?
Yeah. He's captured. Edward has to surrender with him. Mortimer's captured.
Oh, the main baronial force in the Royalist army is captured.
Yeah, Cornwall's captured, and Humphrey de Bohun is captured.
Not many of them.
Yeah,
not many of them are punished. I mean, this seems at this point it's a mistake maybe for Montfort to let them all live, which he does. Okay, you keep with the provisions of Oxford. We'll let you all go right now. Don't come back and fight us again. We won. We're now king. Yeah, that doesn't work very well for him.
Yeah, and as a result, we have the provisions of Oxford. We get the Mise of Lewes, which is a document that is along the same lines, right? That is going to put the barons in charge. Young Edward is made a hostage to ensure that this is done.
Yeah.
And Montfort is a king in all but name, essentially, after this. He won't get to enjoy it for too long.
No. But in my estimation, I know this sounds ruthless, but you got to put some of those guys to death, or you don't hold on to that power. And he seems to think that somehow one victory is going to provide him with a never-ending power in England, and that's not what we don't have. The Mise of Lewes, unfortunately, but it seems very much that that there is very little royal powers being shared or even given at this point. It's just more limitations on the king's power, and that seems to be what the barons are settling on. But I think it's a mistake. Well, it clearly is a mistake.
What it is a mistake.
That was an understatement, wasn't it? Oh yeah, well, we'll see you again in a year. see how you do in a year.
Yeah, Evesham Montfort is pitching up the daisies.
Well,
he made a mistake for
pitching
sure.
up the daisies. We actually have a drawing that appears to be on the film of all the different body parts they cut him up into. More on that in Evesham when we do have
more on that later. For sure.
Where he is not nearly as smart as he is here. I do think you're right. I think in our discussion here, this is, as the gin and tonic is working on me, I'm starting to agree with you a little bit more that I've always thought this was Henry's battle to lose, Henry and Edward to lose, but you've convinced me that Montfort is actually a pretty good general against them.
He does good work. He does good work here. What do you wish we had that we don't have? I mean, you already mentioned one thing, so you're off the hook if you don't have another.
Yeah, I know. Well, the knowledge of land. Yeah. No, I wish the problem is we do have a taste of sources coming from the rebellion's side. I mean, the Song of Lewes and some of the other things kind of give a little bit of a viewpoint from the other side, which we'll get constantly throughout the 100 Years' War, and that helps always to have both sides' view. And the Flemings and the French fight too in the early 14th century. It would be nice to have a little bit more. I mean, we still have these questions about why does Simon not wreak more punishment at the end of the battle? I mean, keeping Edward as a house guest doesn't seem sufficient to me. It would also be nice to know, why I think the surrender is not just no deaths, but the surrender rules are very, very kind and merciful to the king. He really doesn't lose a lot of power.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, and this is the thing that I most want. I mean, obviously, y'all know me. I want to know exactly where the battle is so that I know exactly my topography and all that jazz. But not being able to recover that because I think it's under all these houses. The Mies.
Yeah, it would be nice.
What on earth did that document? We have, like, we can kind of triangulate what it must have been, right? What it must have said, but exactly what was the wording on that? How did it? Because that's what they make him sign, right? That's what Montfort makes him sign, like, immediately. All right, we got you. Sign this, and we don't have it.
No, we don't. And those who aren't experts on Henry III or experts on the 13th century, which I am not. I dabble in the 13th century only to get to the 14th and 15th. Get away from Hastings, get away from the Third Crusade, and now we're in the 13th century. But it seems that the scholars who are experts on it don't agree on what the Mies says. Some think it's a really harsh restatement of the provisions of Oxford, and others just say, "Oh no, it's just the provisions restated." And it's just, well, now you'll
And it matters.
and it does matter, and we don't have it, assuming that it was destroyed by Edward I or Henry III after Evesham. Don't know. Maybe it'll be found.
Yeah. And then I feel like that would answer, I mean, maybe not, but I feel like that would answer some of the questions we have about, why was Montfort behaving this way? Why was he doing this? That might have explained it all, but we just don't have it. I wish somebody would find that in some archive. What is this? Oh,
they're always
I know what
doing
it
this
is.
somewhere in England where they're finding it. Oh, look what we found in the basement of the Lewes Monastery or something in a jar. It is, though, interesting because this is one of these battles where even though we're a little bit uncertain about why the rebellion grows like it does and why they put this man who isn't really even English in charge of it, and then we have these conclusions, and those are where all the questions lie. We actually have a fairly good idea of what happened on the field, and so we can study it as pure military historians, as I tend to revert to. This is a wonderful battle to study because you know what goes on. It's over quickly, and you can see where the errors were on both sides, and maybe ruminate a little bit on whether Simon de Montfort is throwing his Londoners to the the bait, using them as bait.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Man.
But until we walk the field, I
until
can't
we walk
know.
the field. That's true. That's true. Maybe in my
Can't know.
60s,
So
I'm now starting to. Maybe when you get older, you'll think people are more ruthless.
I see. Well, look, Greg in Australia. I hope I hope that satisfied. That scratched an itch for you. It was it's a fun battle. It's a fun battle.
One. Yeah, to think about. And again, it's England, 13th century England, Civil War. 15,000 is not going to mean a lot when we hit the 14th century. least the early 14th century, be that many on each side. So it, for the moment, it's a little small in comparison, but we have such good sources to let us know what was happening in the battle that I like doing this one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Well, look, everybody, I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. They're going to lock the doors on us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So please do join us next time. We're going to be going across the English Channel to France.
A couple centuries later,
to talk about the Battle of Patay with Joan of Arc.
Yeah. Another visit with Joan and with Lord Talbot. So we got some big names there, and fast off.
Talbot, who of course we talked about in our episode on the Battle of Castillon. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Battle of Patay. I think it's gonna be really awesome. I can't wait. So I hope everybody will join us for that. As ever, a reminder, this podcast is sponsored by medievalist.net. So the best way to support us, other than buying our individual books, of course, is to join their Patreon at patreon.com/medievalists. That's also the absolute best place to drop us a line if you have questions for our next Q&As. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.